Good morning, Victoria. It's Tuesday, and for once it's actually Tuesday morning that I'm recording this video. So today I'd like to talk a bit about some books that I've read and books that I've most enjoyed reading this year. The earliest one I read, I'll throw up a screenshot here. The Prestige book is actually the basis for the film of the same name that has Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman in it, and directed by Christopher Nolan, and is actually one of my favourite films because it's so well done. Now, it's quite interesting. The book kind of throws you a curveball. It's about two rival magicians, and it kind of does that thing where it says, haven't got anything up this sleeve, haven't got anything up this sleeve, and there's a penny behind your ear. And it does that in a number of ways, both in your perception of the book itself and the story. I won't spoil any of it for you, but quite interesting. The second book that I thought was exceptionally good that I've read is this book. I got it for something like 10p at a book fair in college, and this is actually a series of essays by the great Isaac Asimov, and it really opened my eyes to some quite interesting scientific thinking. When I was having discussions about anything, it always seemed to have something of a humanities bent to it, because a lot of my friends do humanities, so that's how their brain works, so I don't get a lot of chance to talk about sciences. So that's why I really enjoyed this book. Right, the next book, I was recommended it to me by a friend of mine who asked whether I'd read it, and I said no, and then a few weeks later it was my birthday, and the sweetest thing, he went and bought it for me for my birthday. It is Orson Scott Card's Ender's Game. Now, this probably has the biggest plot twist in the history of literary narratives. It's thought-provoking, it's sci-fi, there are moments in it where I had to remind myself that this is a book about children, and that's quite harrowing every single time you suddenly get struck by this notion of, great Scott, these are children. I'm going to have to flash up another book cover here. Okay, Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. Now, I've not read much of Arthur C. Clarke, but this was an interesting book. The narrative structure surprised me. Childhood's End is one of those science fiction books that you're surprised how much stuff is packed into so few pages. Like, the book is probably about that thick, maybe less than, and yet it has this great sweeping narrative that just has absolutely no fact to it. Like, if Stephenie Meyers was to have written that book, it would have been a 25-volume epic. Like, there's no fat, there's no fuss, it's just high-concept sci-fi. It's incredible. The final book, I haven't actually finished reading, but I'm going to put it on this list anyway because it's the most compulsively readable geology book I've read in a very long time. It's Melting the Earth, A History of Ideas on Volcanic Eruptions. So it's basically progressing through, from the very start, historic ideas of volcanic eruptions and the basis for those ideas, and it's very readable, and I like it when I can find a textbook that actually is fun to read. Those are my book recommendations. I know that a lot of them, well, basically all of them were either sci-fi, steampunk or science, but never mind, those were just the good books that I've read so far this year. Victoria, I will see your video on Friday.